Hello and welcome to the Daily Rant. I'm your host, Mr. Constitution. Today we're going to start my series on the Constitution where we're going to read and I'm just going to provide you my thoughts, things I know about it, things I don't. Fair warning, I'm not a lawyer. I don't really, I'm not a professional. I've just read the Constitution a few times and I think everyone should read and understand it, and I believe that anyone can. It's a pretty straightforward and simple document, made more and more complicated by our society and government as we go along trying to figure out how to live together. So, without further ado, let's start with the preamble of the Constitution of the United States. So, the preamble is a preamble. It's the preface. It's the introduction. It's great for helping us understand kind of the thought processes and the purpose of the Constitution. And it's relatively simple. If you're like me and many other American school children, you probably memorized it in elementary school at some point, but it never hurts to have a refresh. So here we go. Simply put, the preamble to the Constitution of the United States. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. That's it. Pretty simple and straightforward. So here we see laid out before us the purpose of the Constitution. Now, a little historical background. The Constitution, some people may not know this, the Constitution is actually the second attempt by the United States to organize itself and organize the federal government. The precursor to the Constitution was a document called the Articles of Confederation. Maybe someday we'll read that and go over it and compare and contrast some of the differences between the Constitution and the Articles of Confederation. But long story short is after the surrender of the British forces at Jamestown, the United States, the states, had to figure out, okay, what does this mean? How are we going to govern ourselves? How are we going to organize our federal system? And the first attempt made was the Articles of Confederation. And the Articles of Confederation were in force, were the law of the land from 1781, I believe, to 1789. The Articles of Confederation were agreed to by the states, and we tried using them. But it only lasted for about 8 years before it became very apparent that the articles were not working. The nation was severely hampered. The federal government under the Articles of Confederation was incredibly weak. Really couldn't do anything. In a lot of ways, it was crippled. It had no real teeth. It couldn't really do anything. And so as a result, the states kind of did their own thing. Weren't really working well together, and we had a huge breakdown of cohesion in government. And so with all the chaos going on, the states decided, all right, we need to get together and come up with something else. And so what they came up with was the Constitution of the United States, what we currently use as the supreme law of the land, which is the Constitution, which we just read the preamble for. So, like I said, the preamble kind of lays out the purpose, the reason for having a Constitution. The reason why we're going to switch from the Articles of Confederation to the Constitution. So the preamble has no real legal standing, no real legal weight it's more of just an explanation. It's been used in some cases to kind of help us understand what the meaning of later parts of the Constitution are, what and how to interpret the Constitution. But there's no, there's no real legal weight to the preamble. Preambles were kind of common in um, legal documents at the time, and so this is basically just a simple and quick way, just a simple statement of purpose for why we're having the Constitution. So that's about it for the preamble. That's all we're going to read today. Next time we'll start reading Article 1, which deals with the legislative branch of our government. The most powerful and most important part of our government is covered by Article 1, the legislature, and so we'll look forward to that next time. And so I look forward to reading it with you guys next time. So in other news, from Fox News, Pelosi receives communion during Vatican Mass despite abortion stance. So Nancy Pelosi is a giant, a frail old lady who is likely alcoholic, and the poor old girl just ain't what she used to be. She's Speaker of the House, which we'll talk about eventually when we get to that portion of the Constitution. She sort of presides over the House, and as such has a lot of weight, a lot of political weight. She is basically just a terrible person, and not just because she's a proponent of abortion. Lots of people are proponents of abortion. I don't think they're necessarily bad people, but it is what it is. So Nancy Pelosi receives communion. Now, so Nancy Pelosi calls herself a Catholic, which is interesting considering that the Catholic Church has made very clear its stance on abortion, and that is that it is a moral evil. And let's read on this article and see what we can learn about this about this. See if this is worth. So, U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi received Holy Communion during a Wednesday Mass at the Vatican, despite her unwavering support of abortion rights. And so, of course, I just can't help but think, can we be a little consistent here, Catholics? Not only did she receive communion, Pope Francis presided over that morning Mass, which marked the end of the feasts of Saints Peter and Paul. And big feast for Catholics. Orthodox Christians also celebrate that feast. We celebrate it Wednesday morning, today. So Pelosi was seated in a VIP diplomatic session where she joined communion with other congregants. Two witnesses at the Mass said, according to the Associated Press. She also met with the Pope the same day. So Pope Francis met Nancy Pelosi. I hope, man, how awkward would that meeting be? How awkward is that? Because the Pope, the Pope's got to know what's happening here. He's got to know who she is. And here he served her communion. Even though, as we learn in the next passage, she has literally been barred from receiving communion by the Archbishop of San Francisco. Presumably, her Archbishop has literally banned her. So that's a fancy way of saying excommunicated. That's literally, she's been excommunicated. She cannot receive communion, and she should not present herself. She shouldn't present herself to receive communion. So imagine the balls on this lady, right? The balls of this lady. She's literally been excommunicated, and she says, "You know what? I think I'm still going to go try to have communion, and I'm going to do it with the Pope." And the Pope apparently just let her happen. Let it happen. How does that happen? Come on, Catholics. I mean, I get it. Your average Catholic, I'm sure, is pissed about this because I know Pope Francis isn't exactly the most popular among conservative Catholics. So that's got to be just driving you nuts. Poor Catholics. That's nuts. But I mean, seriously, how I, I can't imagine, like, if my bishop, if my archbishop had excommunicated me, I would not even, I would not be able to show my face at church, much less go to communion, much less go get in line for communion without getting that squared away. I mean, come on. Come on. Here's a statement from her archbishop. I am hereby notifying you that you are not to present yourself for Holy Communion, and should you do so, you are not to be admitted to Holy Communion until such time as you publicly repudiate your advocacy for the legitimacy of abortion and confess and receive absolution of this grave sin in the sacrament of penance. She's literally got a letter from her archbishop saying, don't come to communion, and if you do come to communion, you're not going to get any. And she has, I mean, this lady she must have no respect for anything. No respect for anything. And if this is how she acts with her faith, what is her thinking about you, about me, about the Constitution, about government? How can she seriously take? How can she seriously consider herself a rational good? This is just mind blowing. Like, I don't really even know how to say this. Like, how do you get to a place where you literally just say screw you to your bishop, screw you to the faith, and then just go about your business, and then she gets away with it? That's just freaking nuts. I mean, look, I don't know what her standing is before God. I would never presume to judge. Good Lord, I got no foot to stand on here. I'm not a great person either, but oh my gosh, like it's terrifying to think that she might. It's terrifying to think that she's going to stand. I would not want to be in her shoes when Judgment Day comes, standing in front of our Lord, having to answer for what's going on here. That's just pretty nuts. So, yeah, I saw this article this morning. I thought, hey, that's interesting. And here's a quote from Nancy Pelosi about the ruling from the Supreme Court about Roe v. Recently. So, what this means to women is such an insult. It's a slap in the face to women about using their own judgment to make their own decisions about their reproductive freedom, Pelosi said during her remarks following the SCOTUS decision. A woman's right to choose reproductive freedom is on the ballot in November. And there it is. There it is. On the ballot in November. They are going to make as big a deal out of this ruling as they can until November, because they know the Republicans are going to be out, and if they can't motivate their base, it is going to just be a destructive wave of Republicans getting elected. But this is also incredibly disingenuous. All the Supreme Court ruling did is say, you know what? This is a states issue. This is a states' rights issue. The federal government should not be making a ruling. It basically says that the Roe v. Wade was legislation from the bench, and that it was improper and should not have been done, and that this was a long time coming, and finally the arguments were made, and that's it. And so all this means, abortion is not illegal in the United States. All that means is that federally speaking, there are no laws on the books for abortion on the federal level. So that means your state gets to decide how it deals with abortion. People in New York can do what they want to do in New York. People in California can want to do what they want to do in California. People in Oklahoma, in all the states in the Midwest, every state now can choose how it wants to handle abortion. This is a good thing. This is a good thing because now people can live in the state that they want to live in, and they're not going to be ruled by the weirdos in Washington, D.C., or New York, or L.A. The people in the Midwest can do what they want to do, and the people in the coasts can do what they want to do. And there's no reason for there to be any fighting over this. I imagine most people in states where abortion has been banned, these trigger laws have banned abortion with the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Most of the people in these states are probably okay with it. After all, they elected the representatives that created those laws. If they want to change them, they're free to do so by electing new people. This is what a republic is. We elect people to represent us as a government, and then that changes the laws. That's how this is supposed to operate. We're not supposed to have people with lifelong appointments dictating from the bench how the nation is supposed to operate. That's not what the founders wanted in the Constitution, as we will learn as we read the Constitution. But there's no reason for people to get upset. People in New York, your abortions are safe. You can continue killing babies. Just relax. Let the other states figure out how they want to handle it. It doesn't affect you because you don't live there. Just relax. Anyway, an interesting article. Nancy Pelosi proving once again that she is just a big garbage person. Anyway, that's enough of the rants for today. If you like what you heard here, please like, share, and subscribe. Feel free to leave a comment. Yeah, thanks, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.